Greetings, Mark Garang, publisher of The Sun, and this is the part 2 of an interview with Joe Lentini, and we're talking about really the famous rescue attempt of Albert Dow back in 1982. And the first half you should watch it if you're tuning in. The second half is there's a new short called 109 Below, which is about Mount Washington and that rescue attempt. So Joe, so we left off, and what I was going to ask is that when you took the tractor, the snowcat went up. You said at the bottom of the Tuckerman. So
we went to the bottom of Huntington's. It goes down, then it cuts across, and it goes to the Tuckerman Ravine Trail.
In the cat.
In the cat.
Okay.
And then we go up to almost to the Hermit Lake shelters.
Okay.
Because that's where the Winter Lion's Head Trail used to be. It's been rerouted. It's on a different part.
Doesn't it go around it now?
It's around the corner more.
Right. And this is when you were there now, because now you hear the avalanche.
Yes.
Okay.
So we head into the winter trail, and we are not as soon as the trail, it goes in a ways and then it cuts to the right, we could see debris on the left. So we worked our way up to the left and we saw avalanche debris, a large field of avalanche debris. We heard, again, it's blowing, it's snowing. We hear Michael. Michael has not been buried that deep, so he's cleared enough snow that his face is free, and he's yelling to us.
And how big is the avalanche? I mean, like a couple hundred feet, or how does that?
I'm going to say probably 150 feet across by a couple of hundred feet up is the debris.
And where exactly is the avalanche? Is that, you said, by Lionhead up there on top of it?
It is, no, way down at the bottom of the ravine. Down the bottom of Tuckerman's. We've only gone in about 5 or 8 minutes from the Tuckerman Ravine Trail when we saw the debris.
So the avalanche, I mean, when you're on top of Lionhead, it's really steep.
Yeah.
Like when you look in the bowl, but this is below that.
This is all the way down at the bottom. Because we're not in the bowl, we're well before the bowl.
Okay.
Because we're even before Hermit Lake.
Okay.
So we go up, people get up to Michael, dig him out. Avalanche debris, you have to understand that when an avalanche happens, the snow's moving down. When it stops, it compresses. Compression causes heat, which then makes it like when you plow a snowbank again and again. It is not loose snow, it is hard snow. So a small group is digging Michael out. The rest of us do what's called a hasty search, where we're looking behind trees and boulders. We have avalanche probes, which you probe down and you're feeling, they're like 10 feet long, you're probe down, you're feeling for anything. We don't find anything. We go into a line search, where somebody is in front, we all probe down, we all take a step forward.
Now this is on day 2, right?
This is on day 2.
Still on day 2.
Still on day 2.
You started on day 1, you came back. Meanwhile, while this is going on with Albert Dow, Hugh and his buddy are still there, out there
and
somewhere.
They have, at this point, serious frostbite, and they have hypothermia. So we eventually, somebody on my left with the probe feels Albert. And he goes, I've got him.
How deep?
I'd say he's probably about a little more than 5 feet down under. We go over and we form a line. We practice this in Mountain Rescue Service. We practice shoveling. First person gets in line and they start to dig as hard and as fast as they can for literally 45 seconds. And then you drop off. You roll out. Somebody just steps right in there and starts to dig. We eventually got down and we saw him. We cleared around his head. He wasn't breathing. Bill Kane, who was also a team leader, was there. He was an EMT. We dig him out. He's not breathing. We try to clear his airway, and Bill decides that we need to get some adjuncts. We need to get some artificial airways. but we try, we can't get a breath in, and then we notice he's hit something underneath his chin, either a tree or a rock. He's broken his neck.
Oh, wow.
So we dig the body out, put him in a litter, and transport him down. I mean, again, I've said this before. I am literally with 10 or 12 of the toughest people I've ever known in my life, and everybody's crying.
Yeah.
So we transport him down, and off he goes to the hospital. I went.
And you knew he was gone when you discovered that his neck was broken.
It was clear. He was not breathing. We could not get a breath in. It was clear to us. I got down and headed over to find his fiancée, Joni, which ultimately I did. I just took off and went because I wanted to tell her before she heard. And I got to her, and somebody else had already gotten to her. I was literally driving down the road. I saw her car stop, and she was just screaming.
Yeah.
So we're done now. We have no place else to search, right? The next day,
Day 3.
Day 3, Cam, I can't remember her last name, AMC employee who was just out snowshoeing over in the Great Gulf, on the top of the Great Gulf somewhere, and went down a little ways, and she saw tracks.
Now, so Day 3, like, where are you guys, what are you thinking about? Are you getting ready to do another day's search?
We have no place to go.
Like, you don't know where he is?
We have no idea where they are. And, you know, having just had this avalanche, it's like, and tracks have been seen. We have no plans unless somebody comes up with well, maybe we should try this area or that area.
Does that happen today? I mean, I don't want to say you gave up, but if you have no place to go.
We have no place we have no idea where they could be. So that's it. I mean, they could be buried under the snow someplace also. You know, Michael and Albert were Michael was lucky enough to he had the radio. Of the two of them, he had the radio. If he hadn't had the radio, we would have never found them.
Wow.
So, in that the next day, this woman Cam saw the tracks, and they got to them, and they were airlifted out of there.
And when you say they, you mean the woman who saw the tracks?
Yeah, and then they brought in a group of people, and ultimately they got them to a helicopter, and they got them up to Littleton, to the hospital there.
And he lost both his legs, right?
Both legs below the knee. And Jeff Batzer, his partner, lost a hand and one leg below the knee.
So how did they survive? I mean, that's 3 days.
Well, they had gear. They had their winter clothing and stuff, and they huddled together, and they just huddled with each other. They were extremely hypothermic, though. They would not have lasted. They had given up at that point. They literally, Hugh has been very clear, they gave up. They weren't going to make it through another night. It was luck that they were found, because no one would have expected them to be there.
Wow.
So, yeah, and for us, there was a lot of anger, of course. I mean, Albert was a close friend of mine. We worked together. I mean, I was director of the EMS climbing school. He was one of my guides. I knew him. I climbed with him. I was angry. But when time goes by a little bit, and you see he was 17 years old. I mean, I was in an avalanche when I was 19, and the fact that I wasn't killed was luck. I mean, it was luck. I knew 5% of what I needed to know, and just that little bit just helped me at the last second. And then something very unusual happened, something I don't know many people would do it. Marie Mounier, who owned the company Wild Things,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he approached her, and he came in
Tatoon?
Titoon.
Tatoon, yeah. I know. And Right, she was married to John Bouchard.
Exactly. Hugh Hare got in touch with her and he moved up here because he wanted to be around so people could confront him and talk to him. I mean, come on. He was probably, at this point, maybe 19. It's like, come on. And he was. And he now was back into rock climbing and made his own prosthetic limbs, which are just tubes. And he was phenomenal. He was living here so we could climb with him, talk to him. I mean, come on, this is impressive for a kid that age. And then he was just phenomenal. Some of the climbs he did were unbelievable.
With his prosthetics.
Yeah. Which, although, could be a bit of cheating here because he could be anywhere from 5'2" to like 6'4". So.
Oh, he had a different set of prosthetics?
He had different legs, different tubes. And then he went off to school. He went to Harvard and MIT, got a master's and a PhD, and then started working on prosthetics. A few years ago, another local climber here, Jim Ewing, fell on a small cliff, broke his ankle beyond repair. 9 surgeries, never could work properly, was in constant pain. He was a friend of Hugh's. You, in a surgeon, amputations had always been done the same since they first started, right? Cut the leg, fold the skin back, no access to the nerves. They decided there's got to be a better way to do this. In working with Jim, he amputated his ankle because it didn't work. And they, working with a surgeon, developed a method by which they could now access the nerves. And you designed a foot for him, which, I mean, for Jim, it was a lot of, they picked the right person because he was tough enough to go through all of this. He now has a foot that he can control. He has a foot that works just like our feet work. He can walk up the stairs at night without looking at his feet because his feet do what our feet do when we walk upstairs. He can...
You mean somehow his nerves are created to this prosthetic?
Because that is what the new method of amputation now allows access to the nerves. And the nerves connect to the brain.
Wow.
And there was a woman from the marathon bombing who was a ballroom dancer. She has a new leg. She's back to dancing. They've done this they've created these for, I don't know, around 30 people, a number of which have been military. It's astounding. It's just astounding. It is, I mean, it's never been done before like this. And now, so that's what Hugh Hare has done, you know?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, why is the weather so bad in Mount Washington? This is my amateur's take on it. One is because we get the 2 airstreams coming from the south and the north. But also it's because of the slope of the mountains, right? I mean, I always understood that like because they're little shoulders, so that...
It all gets pushed right at Mount Washington itself. If you look in the bigger range, look further away, you'll see that the storms get funneled. Plus, the storm tracks come up the East Coast. The nor'easters, the classic nor'easters. So what happens is, wind is a process of pressure masses, high and low, equalizing. That's what creates wind. So if you have a high pressure area that's very high, and you have a low pressure area that's very low, and they're moving fast, the winds have to be higher to equalize those pressure masses. If they're not very high and not very low, and they're not moving very fast, the wind's not going to be strong. So that tends to track right up the East Coast. The nor'easter is the classic. And what happens is, when the low area goes by, you know, it's coming, say, along the ocean or along the coast, they're rotating counterclockwise, low pressure. So it's bringing the moist air, relatively, off the ocean. But then when it goes by Mount Washington, it's now, you're on the back side of that flow. So now it's pulling the cold air down. So that's why we see the high winds and the cold temperatures on Mount Washington.
And how well known is Mount Washington? Like we've all been out west, and you know the mountains are bigger and all that. But I mean, even skiers that you talk to from out west, I mean, they just can't believe the weather's so bad here.
Yeah, we were we were doing Mountain Rescue Service was we were doing a team avalanche training years ago, and the two of the people teaching it were very famous Western avalanche people. And one of them, I won't mention his name, sort of dissed our area. And we were in Tuckerman's doing some of our training, doing snow evaluation, digging pits and looking at different snow crystals. And he had his backcountry skis on, and he ate it in the terrain because it, as we know, it's not good New England powder unless you can see your face reflected in it. You know?
There we go.
And he ate it. He was one of the other instructors was working with us, and he comes sort of limping back into our group, and he's got blood all over his face, and it's like, yeah,
he's still skiing.
He got you got it. People come out here. Again, it's not that big. It's not part of a big range, but we just get the cold temperatures and the high winds. I was up there like 4 years ago with clients. We were supposed to leave, or Saturday, we were supposed to leave on Sunday. We couldn't leave on Sunday because the winds were picking up. And I said, when are we going to get out of here? And they said, Wednesday. And they said, well, I said, so what's going to happen? They go, tomorrow, we're supposed to leave on Sunday. Monday, the winds in the afternoon are going to hit 140 probably. Okay. 10 o'clock in the morning, the winds hit 140. So they came early and they go, no, we have no idea what's going to happen. The winds hit 171 while we're up there. You don't see that in other places.
No.
It is, it's a beautiful place. It's closer. It's close to a lot of cities.
Very accessible.
Yeah.
And how have climbers have changed? I think there's always a sense of security if you have your phone and all that. But is that like the famous woman, and I forget her name, 10 years ago, who tried to do the hump and got caught?
Yeah.
What was her name?
I can't remember her name.
But a book was written about her. And so when you do the hump, which is starting from like Mount Adams side, right? And you got to do it in one day, you can't take a pack.
You have to go light.
You have to go light. And that's what she did. And she was a very experienced climber, right?
They always say that, very experienced. But you know what? Experience, you're not used to those conditions. It was really cold when she was up there, And what we see, from my years of experience, what I can put my finger on in so many situations is you go too light, you become hypothermic. You don't have the insulation to keep yourself warm. When you get hypothermic, if your core goes down 2 degrees, you're a little loopy. If your core goes down 4 degrees, you don't know what's going on. And that's why these people, and we've seen this recently up on Mount Lafayette, people get cold and they go off the trail. Why? Because your brain isn't working properly when you have severe hypothermia. And so I can go back over the years and look at so many different rescues where I could see that's what happened. People got very cold and now weren't thinking clearly.
Are there more rescues now than before? I mean, there are more people, more climbers. Do you think people are better prepared and more knowledgeable? How do they?
From my personal experience, right, what I have seen is I see more people properly equipped than I ever have. But the total number has gotten larger. So it's a smaller number, in my personal opinion, that are ill-prepared. It's a smaller percentage, but the number's still fairly high.
Yeah.
Because it's so, you come to North Conway, you look at Mount Washington, what's the big deal?
Yeah,
You know?
and it's like November and it's 65 degrees here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Very good. We have 10 minutes left. Do you want to, anything else? And how many, I've written down 150 deaths on Mount Washington over
Yeah.
time. Is that about what it right?
A little over that, I
Yeah,
think.
so it's a lot.
It's a lot. The number of rescues, I mean, it's sort of a constant thing in the winter. You see in your paper the number of people who
Yeah.
go out. One thing that's a little, one thing I try to stress to my younger team members is I'm there to help people. I'm not there to judge people. Back in the late 70s and 80s, one of our team members, Alec Bear, had a great quote of our team. He said, "We were tan, fit, and hideously self-confident." And you know what? When you're 27 years old and you're a full-time professional climbing guide and you're a member of a very elite technical mountain rescue service team, and our team really is special, it's really easy to initially look down at other people. But then you get a little age and you realize that's all of us at some point, but maybe we got away with it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been doing recently, we're sort of anonymous. People don't know who we are. You know, the Mountain Rescue Service team, we have like 55 members. You see them every day. At the presentations I've been doing of 109 Below and talking about winter on Mount Washington, I'll call them out and say, hey, if there are any members, these are the people, past or present, who turn out in unimaginable conditions to help other people. And they'll stand up, and I've had team members come to me later and go, somebody came up and thanked me for what I've done. Nobody's ever done that before, And when I say unimaginable conditions, my mind immediately goes to certain rescues where we worked in conditions that I honestly today have trouble believing we actually were in. Days when we spent the day out, it was 40 below when I got to tree line. They radioed down from the summit to cheer me up, to say, hey, it's warmed up to 40 below from 44 below. And we went down the west side of the mountain into a 75 Mount Jefferson, a 75 to 85 mile an hour wind. Because there was a storm coming, there was somebody out there, we knew if we didn't get to them, there was no chance they'd survive. And we did. We were able to get them. They didn't survive, but they had a chance at least.
Wow.
But when I say unimaginable conditions, it's like, I honestly can't believe. I look at the wind charts, because I have the stuff at home. They send me down from the summit, and it's like, I can't believe we actually did some of these. But that's the team, men and women who, most of us are either professional guides or hardcore climbers.
It's a lot. Want to switch to school board for a minute?
Sure.
All right, we got 5 or 10 minutes on school board. You were the chair. You're on the school board forever, in a chair for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years.
5 years, yeah.
5 years. What do you think of the changes? In fact, you went to the school board in January, you and Michelle. And you were complaining about something.
They seemed to be becoming somewhat dysfunctional. They had a very long meeting about whether or not to use Robert's rules, and then they decided against using Robert's rules, and they've ignored the strategic plan. When I was on the board, we came up with a strategic plan, which we worked with the entire town on. You remember that, for a year, on sort of a roadmap. In the climbing world, we would say too much of this and not enough of this. They talk a lot, but what are they accomplishing? It's like, so they have a committee to decide about school closing, and then they don't listen to the committee they've created. It's stuff like that.
I mean, what do you think about the the general direction of what's happened with the closing John Fuller versus Pine Tree, and also consolidating the schools so that the K through 2 or K through 3, K through 2, and then in Pine Tree and the
doing that consolidation makes sense right
Mm-hmm.
now. It's going to involve children spending more time in buses, and it's going to be a little bit of extra on the families who have to now split their kids between different schools. Will we? I trust that there is the administration that will be able to handle this, but it's on awfully short notice that they've had to do this. In my opinion, it was a huge mistake for the budget to get rejected this year and force them to do this on such short notice. It's going to be very disruptive, but there are people in place that will be able to smooth that out. Though Kevin's leaving, and the fact that Katie left, like a year and a half ago, Katie Wilson, I mean, they were incredibly talented people, and they're going to be gone. I just went to a retirement or a goodbye party for Virginia Schrader. People are leaving.
No, these are their retirement. When you say leaving, they're leaving because of retirements. I mean, Virginia is retirement age. You think people are abandoning ship?
To some degree, yes, because they don't feel.
Yeah, but Kevin was a superintendent. I mean,
I know, but look at. I mean, I looked at Bill's column yesterday. Again, harping on this and that. We live in a world now where people, if they yell and are louder and more obscene than anybody else, people listen to them. And it just is, people don't want to work in those conditions. Teachers don't want to be attacked in the paper. Administration doesn't want to be attacked in the paper. There is, you see what's going on in our world. I'm not.
I understand that, and I'm only going to defend it to the extent about being attacked. I mean, I think Bill's columns, Bill's column, I think he's talking about the number of teachers that we have compared to other schools. But when you say teachers are being attacked, I mean, we write. The paper is a conduit for a ton of positive stuff in the school. And I'm not trying to be defensive here, but I just take exception to the fact of teachers being attacked.
No, because he is talking about, we have too many teachers to do this, this work.
Right.
Guess what? It's not 1960 anymore.
Right.
The world has changed. For us, for this, something I've said from way before I came to the school board is education is the most important thing we do in this country, bar none. If we don't educate our children really well to compete in the world, this country will fail. All this flag waving and rah, rah, rah stuff isn't going to save us from what's going on in China and other countries that are putting so much money in education that their children are going to be better educated than ours.
Yeah, I would argue that, and not to debate it with you, Joe, because
Yeah.
we're on opposite on this, on the whole budget thing. I would argue that, when we have test scores aren't great, I mean, we have some real issues. I mean, there's a reason why
Absolutely.
towns are considering leaving the SAU. So, I don't know who's to blame for that, if there's anybody to blame, but the school has gotten all the money it's ever asked for except this year.
Yep. The one thing I will point out, because I think the town is totally unaware of it, is when I first came on the school board, the administration, working with the school board, with our approval, moved towards a different form to competency-based education as opposed to standards-based education, where children would demonstrate their knowledge and ability in an area as opposed to just simply passing a test. And as Kevin has always said, I can always get test scores up if we just teach to the test. But when you look at a country like Korea and you see how high their test scores are, but then you look at those same children tested 2 years later, they don't remember that material. You can teach to the test and get higher test scores, but what have you accomplished? It's like kids who learn to read when they're 3 or 4 but don't understand what any of the words
No,
mean.
I agree with that. My sister was a teacher in Gorham forever, and I, you know, she's my sister, so I'm going to say she was a good teacher. You know, but you know, she didn't teach her the test, but her kids, she worked in a team, and they always had high test scores. And she would say, if you teach them properly, they will, as a result, do well on tests. So I think the tests do mean something.
They do mean something.
Right. So just really quickly, I'm on the superintendent search committee, by the way.
Yep.
So I have to be confidential here. They're very touchy about that stuff. But if you go to wave a magic wand, we have a couple of good candidates. And if you could choose a local one or someone out of the area, I know that's a little bit of a loaded question, but I guess my question is, what I'm asking you is that, do you think the system needs to be, quote unquote, shaken up with somebody from the outside with new ideas, or should we try to promote from within, so to speak?
It's purely on ability. It purely should be based on ability. It should not matter. I've always had an issue with the town, which tends to hire from within. I'd just look at the two individual candidates and determine which of those candidates had the best skills for what the town wanted.
But you know, that's hard to tell because a local candidate
Absolutely
can know where all the skeletons are buried.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Are you gonna, so let's, my last question, you gonna run for school board again?
No.
Why not?
You know, I ran again. People didn't want me. That's fine. I put in 9 years, you know. I have a lot of other things. I've been giving a lot of presentations recently. I'm still guiding. You know, I've got plenty to do, and I don't need the headaches. I mean,
it's a full-time job. It's a part-time, full-time job.
Oh my God! I mean, and I would go to meetings, and people would yell at me. And what's funny is I'm an EMT. I got reeled into work at Memorial during COVID. I was COVID testing. I would shove a thing up people's nose and they would thank me profusely. I'd go to the school board and people would yell at me and swear at me and call me, you know all the names they call me. It just is like, it's like, what's going on in the world?
Yeah. Joe, nice to see you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. And good luck with the film.
Yeah.